It's video 7 of the 30-day adventure. How's everybody doing? Hi, Joanna. I texted my brother, so we'll see what's happening with that. Hi, Steph. Hi, Nicole. Okay. How are you ladies today? How have you been feeling in this first week? I'm just going to share this and we'll get started. Up and down. Yeah, lots moving. We're going to talk about that today. All right. Wacky and difficult, but I'm coloring my hair right now. There's a lot. Even if just the three of you gave us, hey, happy birthday, Sultana. Up and down, emotional. Oh my God, it's wacky and difficult, but I'm coloring my hair. I think that gives you a pretty clear read on what's happening. What color are you coloring your hair, Steph? I don't know why I'm doing this. Okay, tell us. I want to know. I want to know what color you're coloring your hair. So welcome. This is video 7. There's currently 7 people watching. That feels lucky. Of the third annual 30-day Soul Innovator adventure, where we work together in we create an energetic container and a global community with the Facebook group with these videos. We work with the Akashic Records, and we deeply partner on creating some really powerful healings and teachings and daily messages. So the messages come through and I embody them and experience them. I share what's going on. You all share what's going on for you. And we work together as a group and we make something really big happen. And this year is about self-worth, self-trust, and making the sort of decisions and receiving in the sort of way to create real legacy. Like who would we really be in the world if we had our money and our career and our lifestyle and our relationships really big and full and fulfilling and the way we want them. And if they're not always in the way we want them, then we know we're still in the groove of creating, we're feeling trusting. Like what would it be like if we knew we were really in the frequency of who we were actually here to be in all of those spaces and how we were really here to express. Stephanie, hi Robin. I asked Stephanie what color her hair was and she said, my hair doesn't know what color it wants to be, just like I can't make any decisions right now either, so we shall see. Okay, well that actually sort of relates to today. So today is day 7, which means we're coming into the first week, 1/4, right? A quarter of this 30-day adventure is completed. We've gone through that first big week. And it's interesting what Steph is saying, because if you're feeling up and down, if you're feeling emotional, if you're feeling indecisive, hi Kim, a lot of that is about needing some space. So I happen to know all of you, but I would say in general, if you've been on some level committed to this field and part of this and participating and engaging, you're not the same person you were a week ago. You're just not. Even if you did nothing, you wouldn't be the same person you were a week ago. But if you're actively receiving and shifting and like consciously moving through the last week as you did, if you're watching these videos, you're not the same person. There's been a huge amount of energy. I would say more so than even any other year we've done. There's a huge amount of energy and information, and it's deeply amplified by the global community that's part of this. So there's a lot that you're actually have received in the last week. And when we're feeling indecisive and emotional and depressed and all over the place, part of that is just needing some space to like now receive it, because we on some level have changed. There's a big internal change that's happened, right? our external circumstances want to begin to reflect that, and we're not taking the space to just let some magic happen. We're not just creating the space. So today is a day where we're just going to take a moment to really digest and really receive what's taken place over the last week for you. And so we'll just take a couple breaths here, breathing in some space and possibility. Great to see everybody who's here. Exhaling out and bringing the hands to the heart here and just making contact with this 30-day container, with your relationship with it. Even if you haven't seen all the videos, doesn't matter, you're part of this tribe, just make some relationship with that. And just relax and ground that. And I'm gonna, as you kind of make connection with that and close your eyes and receive that, I'll read you the rest of the article. So today's message is simply to commit to the space and let the magic happen. So much of why we have these amazing things happen in this program, and the reason why we hire the coaches and the teachers and amazing things happen, it's just because it's not, it's creating an opportunity for you to commit to some space and just let some magic happen. All of these things that have happened, all of these shifts that are happening just by being a human being on the planet right now, when you commit to some space, that's why meditation is so helpful, right? For people, or yoga, it's like just creating some space for something to occur that wants to happen but needs a landing pad, right? So much of what we want to bring in can't come in because there's nowhere for it to land. All the time will talk to people who want to start making like money, right? I work with a lot of people who I help support to begin really bringing in some serious income with their practices. And it's like, they don't have an online calendar. They haven't actually created, they haven't created an LLC or a corporation. They don't actually have any sort of merchant processing service. Like, they don't have any way for the destiny of their work to actually come to them. They don't have a way for people to support and give and receive from them. And then they're wondering why it's not happening. So it's kind of the same thing here. Like, you have to create the space even before you have the client get the PayPal, even before someone's offered to pay you. Like, part of coming into the legacy, and you're just going to keep breathing here. Hi, Mary. Keep breathing, keep receiving, keep connecting to this 30-day. Hi, Melissa. We have to make the space for the magic to happen before it's actually happened, right? And the reason that's so deeply important this year is because we're working with legacy. Hi, Kim. And yeah, big wild times, so much burning off. Exactly. And so since we're working with legacy, and since we want to create the space for the magic to happen, we don't want to come from a reactionary space anymore. So just to keep using that example, you don't want to set up a PayPal or a merchant services account and decide how much someone's going to pay you and decide what the program is once someone said, oh, I'm interested in your work. If you do it a few times, great, but really you don't want to come from a reactionary place when you're building your true legacy. So you actually want to be very clear on what you want to offer and how much it is, and an easy, simple way for someone to pay you for that way before the person says to you, I'm interested. Because when we're working with legacy and when we're really supporting the nervous system and when we're realizing how much is just transforming by stepping into legacy, we don't want to make it more intense and more compressed by creating opportunities for things to happen in a very reactionary way. So that's what today is about. Just create some space to feel what's shifted for you in the last 7 days, rather than not creating that space and then having to create a reactionary need for space, which will come from a lot of emotional release, having a physical issue or an accident, right? Like getting into a fight with someone, being late, being passive aggressive, like all those things start to happen when we just haven't given some space to digest and let the thing that wants to come in actually land. So just breathe that in digest, allowing the miracles to keep showing themselves brighter and bigger with every breath. Feel yourself making a relationship with this 30-day container. Feel the way you're creating some space to just let some magic happen here. Allowing yourself to digest some of the transmission you've already received in the last week with these questions. So just let these very gently just kind of roll through you. Hey Daniel, I was thinking of you today actually. I think it was just your birthday. Happy birthday. So we're just gonna breathe here. Feel the way you're connecting with the last 7 days, right? We've connected with the container of these 30 days, and now you're just gonna connect with the last week and who you've become and what you've uncovered in the last week. Letting yourself feel that. And I'm just going to begin to read these questions. You can just breathe them in. Notice if things come up for you. What has pleasantly surprised me in the last 7 days? Just breathe that in. What has pleasantly surprised me in the last 7 days? Receive that, breathe, let that digest, let that ground. Where have I felt some challenge in the last 7 days? No judgment, totally neutral, just letting that be there, receive that. Breathe that in, letting that ground. What has been illuminated as a place inside of my life or my body that needs more trust and love in the last 7 days? What has been illuminated as a place inside of my life or body that needs more trust and love in the last week? Just breathe here. Beautiful. Very gently. They're just the energies working with us very gently. Trust what's coming through here. And what is something I'm proud of creating in my own experience in the last week that I'm realizing I'd like to celebrate? So just let that gently come in. What's something I've created in my own experience in this last week that I'm proud of, that I want to celebrate in this moment? And how do I want to celebrate that? Let that come through. You don't need to know the how. Let yourself know the what. Decide how you want to celebrate. You don't have to figure out how to coordinate that. Just receive the energy of wanting to celebrate that, what that would look like. It's part of your legacy. And what's a piece of inner wisdom I've accumulated here in this container in the last week that I will bring into my next week? And just feel yourself breathing in that wisdom you've accumulated. Let it be with you. Let it ground down through the feet and feel it traveling into the energy of tomorrow, of our second week in this container, and just feel it already nourishing and building the foundation for what comes next. Really breathing in the wisdom you've accumulated in this last week, feeling that ground go into the frequency of next week, beginning to nourish. Even before we get there, the space is being created and nourished. And we're just going to take a few breaths here in silence and just really create a little space. Allow something to happen here for you. Dropping in even more deeply. And now just begin to call in some space. So your other invitation, your other homework for today would be to take 20 minutes, set a timer, and don't plan anything, but just let it be 20 minutes where something magical could happen with no plan. Just create a container where something cool could happen, where something internally or externally could be reflected. So just feel yourself beginning to set the field for that in your mind's eye, just beginning to, and you might even take your hands and just hold that little 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever you're going to give yourself today. And just infuse it with love and infuse it with trust. And infuse it with desire. And just set it back into your heart. That'll be something you work with later on today. Just creating that space. Hello. And hi, Jennifer. And today is shorter for that reason. Like, I just play with those questions, play with that space. The last thing I'm going to say is, again, the self-worth and the legacy. The legacy comes from beginning to do things from a place that's not reactionary, right? Which is why we want to start to have a place for things to land in our life. I think that's probably the principle of Feng Shui too, right? Like, we want to begin to have a place. So 20 minutes of time doing these videos every day, right? All of those different things. We want to begin to just have a place for things to land. And that's about the legacy, right? Now it's connected to self-worth because you're beginning to assume that something's going to be landing. So when we begin to give ourselves space, we already talked about space in the last week, and it was connected more to the idea of rest and that sort of precise rest and restoration that, like a caterpillar that's in a cocoon, we know they're not just a nap. Like, there's some major transformational work happening. And so we talked about that this week, having that sort of self-worth where we allow that sort of rest. Now we're talking about self-worth that allows the sort of space, because we know we're worthy and we're trusting that these things are going to come in and we're going to begin to create a place for them to land rather than having to see it before we believe it, right? And the thing is that that's about self-worth, because it takes a long time to get to trust and get comfortable with allowing that sort of space, because we've oftentimes associated spaciousness with not self-worth. So for some of us, we're so busy and so overscheduled and responsible for so many things, and so much of our self-worth comes from that, or so much of our life is requiring that we don't actually know how to utilize space. We don't know how to give it to ourselves, so it comes out sideways through like eating or drinking or sort of mindless escapist behavior. It's either for rest or for space. And if we don't know how to give ourselves that, we just get so full and frenetic that it comes out sideways. The other thing is, oftentimes we've associated space with rejection or with isolation or with not being enough, right? So we don't know always how to be with ourselves. We've been programmed to think like space is failure. An empty calendar means rejection. It means you're not busy enough. You don't have the work coming in. We don't have the money coming in. You don't have people interested. Like, there's a lot of association that spaciousness is unsafe or is connected to things not working. And we oftentimes associate compression and production and being really busy with success, and that we're wanted, and that there's a lot of approval, and we're doing the right thing. And the thing is like, all of those are yes and no at different times, but at this very precise moment, especially in this container, spaciousness is required. We've all just received a lot of energy and information and a very precise sort of message. And now we need to create some space for some things to land. And if we don't give ourselves that sort of space, the space will be created in a way that's less fun, right? And I was just on the phone with a really dear friend of mine, incredibly talented person and teacher, and this person has suddenly been given a lot of space. And I've known this person for years, and they've needed this space. And who they were when they started their career is not who they are now. They've really outgrown a lot of the conditions they're still living inside of, and their work just transcends all of it, right? And the energy that works with that person, with their career, has been patient, and now it's no longer patient, right? So they're seeing that the energy that they work with is starting to be impatient. The people around them are starting to be impatient, and the experience of space is feeling like depression and creative, like artist block and all those sort of things. And we were talking about, it's like, it's none of those things. You've needed this space, and you're at the end of the road. And I think for most of it's like, hey, once you've outgrown the conditions and your work and who you are and your light has grown, it's not going to feel good to be kind of circling around the same schedule and dynamics that no longer make sense. And sometimes we don't want to get rid of them because there would be space, and we don't always trust the space, right? We don't always trust something will come into that space. But this person who I know is just going to be fine has been given this space because they're at the end of the road of doing it the old way. And the frustration they're feeling from other people is not, oh, look at you loafing around. On a soul level, it's like, hey, you're not using this space. You're not receiving this space. And it's time for you to let this new thing land. And it can't land until you begin to associate this space as a gift and something exciting. And that's when something new can really land here. And if we don't give ourselves, if we're not very consciously like, wow, we just received a lot, now we're going to take some space to digest, again, it just builds up, and suddenly depression or a business failure or an illness or whatever it is will show up to give us the rest or to give us the space. So we're going to begin to work from this frequency of legacy together, which means we're not doing things in a reactionary way. We're doing things from a place of, I'm going to create the landing pad so the plane can land. So that's what's happening for my friend, and that's what's happening for all of you here. And so we'll just, let's see, I didn't look at anything. Yeah, you're so welcome. So we'll just take a couple breaths here, breathing in that space and that possibility. We always are guided to breathe in when we do this work together, as we breathe in that space and that possibility. And just bring that into the rest of your day. Digest what's already happened. Utilize what's already happened. Oh, Robin, where do you live? It's usually in the middle of the night for you. I'm glad you're here live. More example of spaces for it to land. Well, hey, Amber. One of the easiest ways to create space is literally what I'm going to have you all do today, which is like literally just set a timer for 20 minutes or 40 minutes and be like, completely unscheduled, unplanned. You could go for a walk and see where you're drawn to go. You could do whatever you want. But it's like I'm literally just creating an intentional space for anything to happen. That would be one way. But, Paige, good to see you. Oh, you're in Australia. Yeah, it is good to have these later. In a lot of my programs, I have a lot of Australian people, and we do the classes a little later. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll try to do some of these a little later. But I want you to kind of play with that, actually, and think, if there's something in my legacy and inside of my life, in my relationships, in my body, if there was something in my life that was trying to land right now, what would be the sort of space it would want? So, for example, for someone who's trying to make more money or introduce money into their work that they want to do in the world, the space would be actually having a few days of their calendar that are available for sessions, right? Like actually having very clear understanding of their pricing as of now, actually having client agreements, actually having a merchant processing account, right? Like actually having everything super clear. And then just being comfortable with the space, being comfortable with the fact that there's no clients yet, and just being like, here's the space. Here's the space for it. I'm going to let the plane land, and I'm just going to be with the space and celebrate the space I just created for this. It would just depend on the person, what their space would need to look like. For someone who's wanting to be more creative, right? Like just, again, bringing sort of all of your artwork out, bringing sort of the things that inspire you out, and just taking 3 or 4 hours and just saying, this is just a space for whatever needs to come up, for whatever wants to be expressed. And it would be okay if nothing happens. It would be okay if like nothing is created. This is just a space to begin to welcome this energy to start being expressed, for something new to land. And for a lot of people I know who have been working to the point of burnout, they're not who they were when they began that cycle of work. So at some point they need to take some serious time off to allow who they are now to digest and be experienced. And for me this summer, I ended up having unexpected space. There was a family climactic crisis sort of experience that happened, and I was unexpectedly gone for 6 weeks, right? And it was like, that created some space that I didn't expect, but I actually needed, from my work, from certain relationships, and through the experience of being part of that family moment for 6 weeks, I got to digest a lot of what had happened in the last few years, and I got to experience being who I am as a woman now, and as a business owner now, and as a teacher now, and as a partner now. And I needed like a serious amount of space that would allow that new me to land. And I didn't quite know how to give it to myself, and I was actually being given the space, and I was making it mean something else. I was making it mean like something must be going wrong, or whatever, right? Like a myriad of stories when we have space unexpectedly. But of course I needed that space, and I was given the opportunity to be of service while also being in the space of my life. Because when I was in service in this way, I was kind of outside of my normal life. And so inside of that space, all these new aspects of me could land, and all of these new inspirations, this whole program, everything I'm doing right now, all of it could finally had a place to land where I was able to hear it. So that's an example of some of the spaces we want to give ourselves for today, before we go into next week, before we go into tomorrow. So if you're just joining us for the first time live, so good to see you here. This is part of a 30-day experience. Hey Des, hey Virginia, hey Isabel. Yeah, we were on a little later today, so it's fun. We get some different people on with us. And today is the last day the Epic Legacy program is running, and you can get the information on that, and we can go deeper into that. And otherwise, let's just take a couple more breaths, breathing in some more space. Maybe taking a moment here to drop in, and now with this understanding and this awareness, notice where you've already given yourself some space this month, this summer, or winter, depending on where you live. Really look at where you're realizing something you had made mean stagnancy or failure was actually some very appropriate space for your legacy to really land. Let's just take a few breaths and breathe into that place you've made mean stagnancy or failure or wrong. And now with the awareness of the appropriate space to allow something to land, just breathe that in, let that ground. And as you do that, feel the shoulders drop. You're no longer shouldering a false narrative of what was happening. And as we complete, just breathing in a commitment to give yourself some space in which unexpected magic and miracles and prosperity can come in because you've given it a landing strip. Why not do that every day? What would that look like for you? And certainly do it today. All right, cool. All right, well, have a wonderful rest of your day. Fun to have some new people on, and I will see you tomorrow. Lots of love. Oh, thank you. You as well.